And we welcome you to this edition of the Talk Shop, the Candidate Awareness Tour, day before primary elections with Jimmy Skogard. He's running for U.S. Senate in Wyoming. And good morning, Jimmy Skogard.
Morning, Eric. Thanks for having me on the talk shop this morning.
Like
Appreciate that.
that University of Wyoming gear, man. Tell
Oh,
us
yeah.
about what the campaign trail's been like for you. And we thank you for bringing your campaign trail through our classroom here at the Talk Shop.
Yeah, Eric, I find the campaign has gotten support in certain areas, and one of them has been right there in Laramie, and I appreciate that. I guess maybe when we look at the folks that we garner our support from, we sometimes see that if you're a little bit more active in your community, if you're a little bit more politically minded, if you're worried about the future, sometimes the folks at the university tend to take the lead there. Not only that, though, I think Laramie is just a community that talks together. There's coffee shops, there's venues, there's of course the University of Wyoming and WyoTech. There's organizations there where folks come together and visit. And I think that's what our politics really needs is people coming together and talking about the issues that matter to them. I've I kind of noticed that as we wind down the primary race here, a lot of rhetoric, and I brought back a word from the past. It's huckster, and if you know what a huckster means, it means somebody that uses politics to advance an issue that has virtually no meaning to you and I. It delves into fear and it delves into outrage, but it has no value to you or I. It's designed to work on our emotions rather than on the issues that are impacting us. Issues like the national debt, issue like continuous warfare in the Middle East, issues like a failure of our government to invest in the infrastructure of this country and just blindly run the debt up. I mean, do you realize, Eric, that we will have ran the debt up in the first 2 years of this administration by $4 trillion. $4 trillion. We will be sitting at $41 trillion in the hole by December. We're on track to spend about $750 billion just this quarter, and then we're going to run up another $640 billion next quarter. And these are not the issues that folks are talking about. It's certainly not my opponent, Harriet Hageman. She talks about how she saved $1.5 trillion. I'm like, how does that math work, Eric? You saved 1.5 trillion and then you tacked $4 trillion onto the national debt. You saved nothing. Maybe instead of tracking 5.5 or tacking $5.5 trillion onto the national debt, you only tacked $4 trillion onto the national debt. That's debt for our children and our grandchildren to take care of. That's just mind-boggling to me that is the way our politics work right now.
Last week, you were on a PBS forum, a debate, if you will, and it was televised. Any thoughts coming out of that and heading ahead of tomorrow's primary election?
Yeah, the only thing that really we didn't talk about during that debate was the protections that we're offering child sex predators. And I have to share this with everybody out there. When you go to vote, if you're thinking about voting Harriet Hageman, I want you to consider House Bill 589, 598, and 672. Those bills came up in July of 2025. And what they effectively did was delay the release of the Epstein Transparency Act. 589 was the original bill that was going to release the Epstein Transparency Act in July of 2025. In late July 2025, 589 came along, and it was to bring the original bill to the floor for a vote, and then the folks in the House, under the leadership of Johnson, came up with House Bill 672, which was a water and appropriations bill, and then they buried within that bill, they in section 10 they buried a seven little words that tabled 598, which would have brought that bill to a vote on the House. And what the result of those shenanigans were 76 days. 76 days. And Harriet Hageman voted yes on 672, by the way. So she voted for these 76 extra days to delay the inevitable, what turned out to be the inevitable release of the Epstein files. And now we see that they're heavily redacted. We have no idea who are the perpetrators in there. We're dragging our feet on dragging these billionaires and these very wealthy individuals out into the light of day to where sunlight can hit them and we can move on from this. Instead of moving on, we continuously drag this out. And now we've elected Todd Blanche as Attorney General, just approved. It was 60 or 70 or whatever it was. Legal minds here in Wyoming said, no, don't do that. And yet John Barrasso and Cynthia Lummis just rubber stamp whatever this administration wants. This is not representing Wyoming. Wyoming is not represented well, Eric. And really, I guess this is a wake-up call for us, folks. We got the primary tomorrow. If you haven't voted, if you've decided that your vote doesn't count, well, it does. It really most certainly does. We need to stop this nonsense and start moving back to the center. I know the truth doesn't matter a lot to folks, but it's always there. That's the funny thing about the truth is it's always right there.
What's the truth in campaign financing? You are at the final day before the primary election, and as you ran your campaign through our classroom here at the Talk Shop through 4 months, you've basically been at this since February. What have you learned, or what would you suggest with respect to campaign finance?
I think we need to form a mechanism where finance takes a lesser role. I mean, I tried this year. I managed to raise about $3,000 for a statewide campaign, so not a lot of financial support. I mean, I don't have the legacy family support that is important in Wyoming and has served Wyoming well. I mean, legacy families have served Wyoming very well over the generations, and yet I noticed that the people really don't have a mechanism for finance. And so I would suggest that we work together to form a kind of a network, a free network that you can participate in, that you and I can participate in, so that we set up a server somewhere, we issue an email address or something like that, and then candidates that don't have the backing, the financial backing of billionaires, of out of state political action committees and in state PACs, and well funded organizations, and the ability to send flyer after flyer after flyer. That's some comedy right now, isn't it? The number, you can like make wallpaper out of the flyers that you're getting via mail. I mean, the post office is loving life right now. I mean, I'm expecting them to post a just this huge profit this year. But anyway, what I'm getting at is there needs to be another method so that folks can opt in and opt out, with meaning. If we have a statewide system that folks can opt in and opt out, so candidates like myself that are from the people, that want to represent the people, that have a legitimate position that folks should actually consider before they go vote, have a method to reach out that does, and emails. What I'm talking about, basically is an email or maybe even a text message. Text do cost a little bit of money. They cost about a penny for about 15, 20 words. You can text out 15, 20 words to folks for about a penny. But an email is free. Now I tried to go out and take a shortcut around this one here. I went out and paid about $3,000 for everything that I got in campaign contributions. I paid for an email list. I thought I would send some emails out to 89,000 people is what ended up in that email list. And that was squelched real quick. I mean, I started sending emails, unsolicited emails, and Google picks that up real fast, and Yahoo picks that up real fast, and they start filtering my emails and all my emails, and then even threatened to send my domain grassrootsmbt.org to block. They were going to block my domain if I didn't stop sending unsolicited emails. And so I stopped. I mean, like, yeah, they got a point. Nobody asked for this email. And all I was trying to do was send out my candidates page, where you can go and look up your candidates by your address and surface all the candidates like a what was it? It's called a sample ballot. Like your county clerk provides a sample ballot, so you can go in and see who's on your ballot before the election. And this is the electronic version of that. And I thought everybody would want to see that. I didn't really consider that. Yeah, this is indeed an unsolicited email, and Google has a point. They're trying to protect their base of users. But I'm like, okay, well, how does a candidate with no recognition then reach out to the constituency, especially a statewide type of a constituency? And I said, well, we obviously need a solution, a statewide solution that allows you, the voter, to choose whether or not you want to hear from a candidate. If you want to hear from a candidate, you should be able to say, I want to hear from this guy and this guy and this guy. Or if you listen to a message and it comes back like the huckster messages we're hearing from say the folks like Chuck Gray and Steve Freeze and Reed Rasner, that's all huckster politics to me. And if it comes back like that, then you can say, I don't want to hear any more from these guys and shut them off. And then you continue to get messages from the ones that you want. I think that would be more representative than, say, a mailbox full of flyers. I mean, really, you vote once in Wyoming, and then you're on the list forever to get these flyers. And then some folks are like, well, that's why I don't vote. I don't go out and register to vote, so I don't get bombarded with this nonsense and these text calls. Now, I did make a post about text calls because there is a thing called 10DLC it's registration and legislation that prohibit text calls to unsolicited text calls are just the same thing. And so there's legislation out there about that, and there's some teeth to that legislation if you bother to go take a look. Now, I've received, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 text messages that are unsolicited, and of course I just hit stop, and it seems to end the calls, but still, some of those things get people a little upset. And so I actually got the 130,000 phone numbers also. I got that. I paid another $2,000 for those. I thought, well, I'll send text messages, and I learned real quick, real fast about how that doesn't work either. So you're not allowed to do that. And again, I wanted to send out the just a link to the candidates page so folks would know. But you can't do that. You're not allowed. I mean, our regulations say don't be sending out unsolicited text messages, and yet some of the campaigns, they'll hire this pundit or that pundit or this company or that company, this political, and these companies are promising them, oh, we're gonna send out your message, and so they go with one, and that one gets stopped, and then they can fire up a new number and send you another text, and they get stopped. But the way to fix that is to we probably do need a little bit of legislation that adds a few more teeth to this to say who is sending the message. So we need to know who is sending the message, or maybe even register the phone number with the federal agency or with a local or state agency. Make the folks register their phone number, and if they don't register their phone number, then give the Secretary of State some teeth to look into the phone numbers, who's using those phone numbers, which carriers are they going through, and if we can't find the characters that are sending the text messages on behalf of whichever candidate, well, then we put some teeth in there, and we add a little fine. You want to send out a text that costs you a penny, now it's going to cost you $10 a text or something like that, and we let them add that up. Go add that up across 130,000 phone numbers and see if that doesn't put an end to the unwanted text messages. I built an opt-in page on my website, and I tried and tried and tried through this campaign to get folks to use it. And it seems like folks don't want to receive text messages. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, you just don't want that, because otherwise I think I would have gotten a few more. I did get about 140 over about a year and a half. So I got about 140 folks opting in to received email and text messages, and I send out an email occasionally or a text message occasionally, but very, very rarely do I do that because it's an annoyance. It's something that you have to respond to.
Jimmy, what was your reaction? What was your internal response giving the Wyoming GOP's uh, their endorsement that was issued prior to the Wyoming primary election for particular candidates? You weren't on the roster.
Exactly, Eric. And you asked what my reaction is. My reaction is, hey, folks, we need to get involved all the way down to the precinct man and precinct woman level. What that is, a precinct man and precinct woman actually, for the Republican Party, actually control the direction of the Republican Party. So here's how it works: three county representatives are sent to the state GOP gathering where we make up these rules and elect our leadership for the Republican Party. Three candidates out of each county. So that's what is that? 69 individuals that actually vote and they come from the precinct man and precinct woman for each county. So the smaller county, say your county only has about 1,200 people in it. Well, you're going to get three representatives. You now compare that with say Natrona County, which has nearly 100,000 people in it, or Laramie County, which has nearly 100,000 people in it. You're going to get three to represent 1,000 people, and Natrona and Laramie are going to get three to represent their counties. Seems a little skewed. We have much greater representation of our smaller counties. So our smaller counties, you got to look at where we're getting our information in our smaller counties. We can easily slip into a media bubble when we're that remote, when we're separated by that distance from one another. We just don't have enough conversations with each other, and so these media bubbles can sometimes influence us, and we get more. I don't know if it's the correct word is radical, or maybe it's conservative. I don't know what the far right. I mean, we've got all kinds of ways to describe it and label it, and that's part of the problem too. I mean, the labels that we use, we kind of categorize folks, and maybe that's not right. But yeah, there's a kind of a division within the party, and it's based upon this representation factor of counties. And so I think we need to rework that. We need to get together as a Republican Party at the committee person level, and we need to apply the voice of all the committee people across, because a typical committee person should represent about 250 people that registered and voted in the last election. That should be the number of committee people that we have, and I see that that's probably the case in a lot of instances. And yet those committee people don't have an equal voice. Like I said, if you're in a small county with 1 to 3,000 people, you're electing one committee, or you're sending one committee person per 1,000. Whereas if you're in a larger county like Natrona or Cheyenne or Laramie, I'm sorry, you're sending 1/10 or 1/100th of a person per. Anyway, it's a
One
disproportionate.
rep for 30,000 people essentially would be the math, roughly.
Yeah, so yeah, we've got a kind of an imbalance there, and so we need to look at voting for our statewide leadership based on one vote per committee person. I think we need to
Jimmy
fix that.
Jimmy Skogard, our guest this morning on the Candidate Awareness Tour 2026. Jimmy, before you ran for U.S. Senate in Wyoming, what was your engagement level? 1 to 10, 10 being the most engaged, 1 being the least. What was your engagement as a fellow Wyoming citizen in our governance?
My engagement level was about a 2, Eric. I really was one of those guys that stood by and watched things and thought that character and integrity would always be part of our political system, and that I didn't need to get involved. And when the 2024 election rolls around and we elect uh, people with zero integrity and absolutely no character, Then I look at that and I say, wow, how did that happen? It happened because people like me sat on the sideline and watched. You know, that kind of talk's going to get me labeled. I've been labeled about just about every label there is out there. But I'd like to share something with folks. If you embrace those labels, folks, they have no power. And the folks that label you stop labeling you because they realize that it doesn't affect you. They're designed to labels are designed for folks to take a shortcut in thinking. So you label something, oh, I don't have to think about what he's saying, and you say, and then you can kind of skip it. It's a human evolutionary tactic. As a matter of fact, I got a little story about this. We got a second. I met a fellow running for mayor for the town of Torrington, and we were outside a meeting in Sundance, Wyoming. We went up there and had a little brief and ran into some folks there from my family. My mom grew up in Sundance. But anyway, back to the story. The man that I was visiting with was supporting Chuck Gray's campaign, and we were talking about immigration or abortion, one of those divisive topics. And he whips out the label rhino, and I said, well, if you use the label rhino, that means there's something you don't want to think about. And he's like, oh, well, what is that? And I'm like, oh, well, a label helps us take shortcuts and it's an evolutionary thing. He goes, oh, so you believe in evolution? And then he gets up and walks off and locks himself in his car. And so I'm like, oh, two labels and a walk away. I thought, how interesting. Folks don't really want to listen to things that shake their belief in whatever nonsense they happen to be supporting. And so when you have these conversations, just keep that in mind. The labels are just used to dismiss whatever the thinking process is.
Jimmy Skogard, candidate for U.S. Senate in the Wyoming primary elections tomorrow, August 18th. Your final 30-second close, Jimmy.
Well, it's so important that we as citizens exercise our right in our system of government to vote. This is where we right the ship. This is where we take a look at who we're supporting, why we're supporting them. Like I said, I built that candidates page for you so you can surface all of your primary candidates at candidates.skogard2026.org, or just go to my website, search for Skogard, and then go to the my ballot or the candidates page on the hamburger menu, and complete your ballot, and then go in and vote, because this is your right. This is about how you protect your freedom. And when you're looking at candidates, I'd like you to seriously consider those that I'm labeling hucksters, and read up about what the word huckster means. These are the folks that are pounding smokes up your backside so that you don't even know what's true anymore. And you need to look at things like, the national debt. You need to look at things like how it's impacting you. You need to look at real items, the cost of gasoline. Why are we in an endless war? Those are the type of things you need to be looking for candidates who have the strength and courage to talk about. If you're not finding those candidates, then maybe you need to continue to look.
Jimmy Skogard, our guest today on the Candidate Awareness Tour on Wyoming Primary Election Eve. Jimmy, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me on again.